Hello and welcome to part 2 of Module 3 of the Summerhill Online Academy IELTS Writing Preparation course. Module 3 is dealing with IELTS Writing Task 2, the essay. And in our first section, we looked at the thesis statement approach, a way to organize our answers. And we're going to extend that approach in looking at the entire writing process for an IELTS Writing Task 2 academic or general, as they are structured the same. And for our purposes, we're going to take a look at a common topic. This is a question that might come up in both general and academic because it's dealing with a very global issue, which is global warming. Now, global warming has been a topic of scientific debate, but it's also a topic of social and political debate, making it a perfect topic for academic IELTS Writing Task 2, both academic and general as well. So the topic of global warming is a controversial one. It's been a topic of political debate for some time. There are definite skeptics of global warming in both political and scientific fields. So global temperatures have fluctuated. They have changed and have fluctuated over the last thousands and thousands of years. And they have been much, much higher than they are now, even before the industrialization of our way of life. So even before the heavy use of industrialization, global temperatures have fluctuated greatly over thousands of years of human civilization. Nevertheless, we know that over the last couple hundred years, global temperatures have increased drastically, and this has had a strong impact on our nature and our ecosystems all around the world. And of course, because the global temperatures around the world are not the same, they are of course very different. We have very different climates around the world. A potential increase in global warming is going to impact different nations differently. And there may be some advantages and disadvantages to global warming, in some countries more than others. But of course, the main cause of global warming, the main scientific consensus about the increases in global warming around the Earth is the increase in greenhouse emissions, or greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, leading to a more profound greenhouse effect. And carbon dioxide, or CO2, is the main culprit, or the main greenhouse gas that has led to increased global temperatures around the world. And this increase in CO2 emissions, or this increase in greenhouse gases, has been largely considered to be caused by industrialization and the use of fossil fuels, both for driving cars and heating homes, and also, of course, in this industry around the world. So this is a topic that we know very much about. It is a common topic, making it a perfect topic for IELTS Writing Task 2. Now, first of all, so we should always consider what the topic is and understand the topic. Right? So the first sentence here: developed countries have created many environmental problems in the world, particularly in their contribution to global warming. We understand we're dealing with an issue that we are firmly understand. And we are asked here the question, why is global warming a problem? Okay, so what is the problem with global? Why is it a problem for us? And what can be done to reduce the dangers of global warming? So this is kind of a cause and effect, we could say. On one hand, we can say, what is the cause of global warming? And again, we could talk about the increase of global temperatures around the world. That could be the cause. But with why is global warming a problem, we might be talking about why global temperature rises are an issue rather than just the causes of global warming. And for the second part of the question, we're all definitely going to need to find solutions. So in order to answer this question, first of all, we should plan about what structure of the essay we have. Now we have really two options in here because we have two questions that we have to answer in a balanced response. So for this question, we might write a type A essay and talk about causes and maybe the solutions of global warming. So that would be a type A essay, a very easy type of essay. We could also attempt a type C essay. And for this type of essay, we have cause 1, and then solution cause 2, solution cause 3, solution. So if we had in mind 3 causes for global warming, and then 3 solutions how to solve those 3 causes or to prevent those three causes from happening, we might choose a type C essay instead. However, for our purposes, I'm going to use a type A essay, and I'm just going to spend the first part of the essay writing about why global warming is a problem and then what are the solutions to global warming. And I've chosen type A essay here because type A counter-argument essays are the most common structures for IELTS Writing Task 2 essays that really work. And they can be used for almost for the majority of IELTS Writing Task 2 essays. And I just want to keep things simple and satisfy the requirements of this task without getting myself too confused. So I just feel like, why is it a problem? What are the solutions? I'm not going to spend so much time talking about the causes so much as why it's a problem. So why is global warming a problem? Okay, so thinking about why global warming is a problem, of course, on top of everyone's mind is the potential extinction of many of our species on Earth. Already many animals are feeling the effects of global warming, and so they are on the endangered list of animals. They are an endangered species, or they are in danger of being extinct or being wiped out. So that is, of course, a major problem. And we're, of course, talking about a species of animals and plants and insects which are vital for the function of most ecosystems. Right? And then we can think about climate change in general. And again, we can think about the increase of some natural disasters such as forest fires. Already globally, we have seen a definite increase in global forest fire duration and frequency globally. This has had a great impact on the health of our ecosystems and even the air quality of our urban dwellings. Again, droughts, of course, are a huge impact in many countries around the world. Entire crops are lost. There is, of course, the drought and loss of water in some countries and regions has also led to the extinction or desertification of many regions. And again, global weather changes are, of course, impacting bigger storms, typhoons, tsunamis. But when we look at this problem more closely, we could spend this whole section here talking about why global warming is a problem for those particular reasons, and that is fine. But this IELTS Writing Task 2 question is just a little bit tricky in the sense that it's talking about developed countries have many environmental problems in the world. And again, I feel like this question is focusing more about developed countries when we think about all of these other problems such as extinction of species, natural disasters. They could be, these are more global issues in general. But what we're thinking about here is, why was global warming a problem in developed countries? Right? So in developed countries such as Canada, with very strong economies and diverse ways of boosting the GDP, in most developed countries, the issue here is the issue of sustainability versus unsustainability in respect to how our countries get their energy from, our main sources of energy. So yes, in countries such as Canada, we have invested in hydropower. We have one of the oldest hydropower electric plants in the world, if not the oldest one. It's the Niagara Falls, famously built by and designed by Nikola Tesla. And of course, we have solar power and wind power, right? And we would consider these clean sources of energy or renewable sources of energy, as opposed to dirty fossil fuels or non-renewable sources of energy. And again, the question is, why is it that in developed countries we continue to rely on dirty fossil fuels instead of relying more on renewable clean energy, which does not cause the production of CO2 emissions and these forms do not contribute to global warming? Well, one of the reasons, of course, is quite political. And again, it has to do with lobbying. So in general, big oil companies or fossil fuel companies usually do a lot of lobbying. And by lobbying, it means they sponsor lobbyists who then fund campaigns or political campaigns for certain politicians. In Canada, at least, very famously, we've had a huge national debate about whether or not to fund a trans-mountain pipeline, oil pipeline, that would potentially cross some of the most scenic and beautiful and unspoiled parts of nature. And this has, of course, created a lot of protest around the world, and tremendous protests in Canada to stop the building of these pipelines, which could potentially burst and cause widespread solutions. Again, when we think about this, oil companies continue to spend money on lobbying to block certain policies that could tackle climate change. Oil companies contribute significantly more into lobbying than renewable energy companies have the budget to. And again, that's a big cause for this is the monopoly that oil companies currently have. So fossil fuel companies simply have had a lot of investment and traditionally had a lot of control over the main sources of energy production in most developed countries, and shifting focus from these non-renewable to renewable sources of energy is very difficult when most of these dirty fossil fuel companies, these oil companies, already have such a tremendous monopoly over this form of business. So we've talked a little bit about why global warming is a problem, both globally and focusing on developed countries. We should now think about what is a way to reduce the dangers of global warming. And again, coming back about the reasons global warming is a problem in developed countries. The ways to, I would say, from my personal perspective, the way to deal with global warming in most developed countries is to invest more in research and development towards renewable energy sources. Renewable sources such as biomass, wave power, geothermal energy, more into wind and solar power. Now, the reason we have not done so already is primarily because it's just so expensive. So we have not perfected solar power or wind power, and even biomass energy can produce somewhat of a more polluting situation. There are issues with biomass that we still need to resolve. Wave power has barely been tapped. And so we still need to invest money in order to increase these renewable sources of energy. So Now that we've sort of identified what the topic of this essay is going to be about, and we've had a general plan that we want to have a type A essay. We're going to spend one paragraph about talking about why is global warming a problem and what can be done to reduce the dangers of global warming. In the second body paragraph, we thought about some of the issues, we've thought about the focus. It's time to write a thesis statement. So as we remember in the first section of this module, a thesis statement has to answer every part of the question. So in that one thesis statement, in that one introduction, in that one sentence, we want to talk about both the causes and solutions of global warming in developed countries. And also we want to have a clear thesis statement that has a clear position. So we're not going to say some people think this, some people think that. Although some questions do have the word some people in it, we are expected to take that thesis statement and word it in such a way that it comes from our personal opinions or from our own personal position. And again, a good thesis statement is like a map that predicts the structure of the essay. So we don't want to have a general global thesis statement saying that I believe there are some causes to global warming and there are some solutions to global warming as well. That would be a very global thesis statement that, yes, answers every part of the question and does have a clear position, but it doesn't tell us where the thesis statement is going to go in terms of predicting the actual details of what we're going to talk about. So it's important to actually write those predictors, those key terms that are going to focus our essay in such a way that once we write a thesis statement, it can serve like a map. It can serve like a map that will help us to keep ourselves focused so that when we're writing, we can think about how to write instead of what to write. So the thesis statement will predict about what we're going to write. So when it comes to actually writing those body paragraphs, we're thinking about how to write. We're looking at good sentences, good grammars, instead of trying to think of ideas. So let's take a look at the thesis statement that I wrote. Because of an economic resistance to renewable energy research, the governments of developed countries need to make the environmentally conscientious choice of investing in national renewable energy efforts. So this thesis statement has two parts. Because of economic resistance to renewable energy research, so my cause will be the resistance due to economic factors to researching renewable energy. And my solution will be to invest more, to try to invest more in renewable energy efforts for the long term. And this thesis statement will then predict the structure of my paper. And again, in this paper, I'm writing a type A essay with spending one paragraph equally about causes and one paragraph equally about the solutions. Let's take a look more closely at the body paragraphs. So first of all, I believe the key cause to global warming in developed countries is the refusal of established fossil fuel-based energy companies to relinquish their collective monopoly in providing energy to both homes and vehicles. Petroleum is a massive global enterprise that plays a central role in most developed economies. As such, governments are reluctant to pass any legislation that could harm such industries. And because fossil fuel companies are powerful lobbyists for most developed governments, the monopoly of such companies continues to keep renewable energy producers from being able to compete with the more environmentally harmful energy-producing competitors. For a solution body paragraph, nevertheless, if governments of these developed countries begin to embrace a stance that sees renewable energy as a valuable investment, research into clean and sustainable energy could finally produce the changes that could reduce our current global warming crisis. This, of course, cannot happen without scientific research, which is also one of the most important economic backbones of most developed nations. by investing more into public education and non-governmental organizations that actively seek out solutions to our energy crisis, I believe developed nations may eventually develop a competitive and lucrative renewable energy industry that can reduce the impact of global warming. So, our body paragraphs clearly follow the structure of our thesis statement. Our thesis statement not only predicted that we were going to spend one body paragraph talking about causes and the other one about solutions, it also hinted about the exact focus of our body paragraphs, and in so doing predicted what the topic of our body paragraphs is going to be. So now that we've written our body paragraphs, it's time to think about the conclusion. In many cases, sometimes I can see that many candidates simply paraphrase the topic sentence. They just rewrite the topic sentence again. In other cases, I see that in the conclusion, it just paraphrases what was said in the body paragraphs also. Or in the worst case scenario, the conclusion is a very formulaic series of sentences, such as, in conclusion, I believe this is an important issue and we should talk about it in more detail, which is a very global conclusion that could be applied for any academic IELTS writing task too. And because it seems almost memorized or formulaic, in some cases, examiners may even want to ignore that because it's memorized language. It's very formulaic. It simply does not produce does not add to the overall score. It looks like a weak conclusion that doesn't say very much. So what can be said in the conclusion? So the conclusion is the opportunity, first of all, to add more opinions. And some candidates may have more opinions about the topic that may not relate to the absolute focus of what is expected about this essay. So this essay asks about causes and solutions, but we might have a more another topic about global warming. Could be your skepticism towards global warming. Could be your approval, your concerns about global warming. It could even produce another solution, a solution that's different overall. And sometimes we only have causes. Sometimes we have, especially for essays that just ask for only causes or only reasons why something is a problem. Or simply we get those agree or disagree type of essays where it's 100% agree, 100% disagree. We might choose to add maybe an eventful solution to our conclusion. Or maybe this is where we add a choice. Maybe we believe equally in a particular opinion, but here we choose one more than the other. Or in cases where we have to discuss both views and give our opinions, we may use a choice simply to say which one we believe is a little bit of a better approach, even though in our body paragraphs we would talk about both choices equally. And finally, my favorite is making predictions. Predictions are a very interesting way to end a IELTS Writing Task 2 essay. What will happen next? Maybe this issue will disappear by itself. Maybe it's going to get worse. Okay, so a prediction about the future is also an interesting way of adding conclusion. Here's my conclusion. In conclusion, I do not see much hope for today's global warming crisis. Modern leaders such as Donald Trump and Doug Ford tend to see themselves less as politicians and more as businessmen. For as long as investing in fossil fuel production continues to fill the private coffers of these world leaders and continues to justify subsidizing this business sector for the sake of preserving fossil fuel worker jobs, the future of our global warming crisis looks bleak. Okay, so it's a kind of a negative conclusion about global warming, but it's fine. And it just gives us a little bit more than 250, so this response would be about 300 words totally. Now, another thing that makes this response a good response. Of course, we did answer every part of the question. We provided conclusion. We talked about both sides equally. Is that we can see a variety of subordinations. Now, subordinations or complex sentences are essential for IELTS Writing Task 2. But the subordinations we can see here, there's only 5 subordinates that are being used here. And these subordinates have produce a variety of different types of complex sentences. So they produce a variety of sentence structures. And if we take a look at our IELTS band descriptors for Writing Task 2, the public versions, of course, and we look under grammar, range, and accuracy, we can see that we do not get a very high score if we have a limited range of structures. Now, again, this is very important to understand, is even if every sentence in your response is correct, but uses a simple grammar structure, you will get a band 5 in your answer, right? You will get a band 5 if you attempt complex sentences, right? Band 6 uses a mix of simple complex sentence. Band 7 is what we're going for, uses a variety of complex structure. So a variety of complex structure can most effectively be produced by creating a variety of subordinates or producing a variety of subordinates accurately within the structure of the essay. But that will be a topic of part 3 when we discuss some of the more helpful hints and tips to pushing your IELTS Writing Task 2 beyond a band 7.